I'm going to read off Lee Benson's intro. So Lee has over 25 years of experience as a CEO. He owned and led Able Aerospace, then sold it for 9 figures to Textron Aviation. Next, he founded Execute to Win, to help senior leadership teams experience similar results by working together at improving the organization's most important number. Today, his operating system is used by businesses all over the world. Lee lives in Arizona, where he leads ETW and invests in and advises many high-growth companies that use MIND methodology, which he'll explain a little bit later today. He enjoys playing guitar, reading, exercising, and spending times with people that matter the most. So thank you for spending your time today. Come on up to this stage here with us.
All right, that's a lot.
Right? Yeah. Well, you're going to have to live up to it, you know.
And I'll do my best.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best to be able to, ask the right questions. And I believe that the crowd here is wanting to know, what is MIND? Let's talk a little bit about MIND and how that came about.
Yeah. So in my 63-year overnight success story, because that's how old I am today, I've started 8 companies from scratch, and as you go along, you figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I wanted a common way of creating value with all team members. So MIND, the acronym, and the MIND management systems, it's all about most important number and drivers. So at the top of the organization, what's one number that says above all others you're winning or losing the game, and drives the majority of the right behaviors. When I sold 2 aerospace companies combined in one to Textron in 2016, our most important number was EBITDA, because that was the multiple we were going after. I don't know if I've told somebody this, but got a 21.6x multiple of EBITDA. Is that good? In aviation. So we repaired, overhauled, and manufactured aircraft parts. The strongest competitors at that time, when they sold, they were getting maybe 8x, usually around 6. And so intentionally creating value, and I think about it as holistic value: material, emotional energy, X factor for leaders, scarcest commodity on the planet in my view, and then spiritual value creation, which is all about connectedness and programs with team members. We had 15 years straight of 20% or better compounded annual growth on average. A really great, believable story to keep that going, and a strategic buyer. So all of that kind of came together. So this MIND management system that was created, it was, how do we intentionally create value faster and create holistic value so it's just worth a lot more? And one of the things I'd say about it is I walked away from that deal 3 times. They ran at us, and an equally good, if not better, option was keeping the company. Because you even asked the question, or somebody did earlier, is that where you made your money? Is that one big? I could have retired long before I sold that company, long before I sold my first company. I'm into creating value, not how do I build this thing up and make a bunch of money and exit and then do the next thing like a lot of people talk about it. I want to create real, objectively net positive value in the world in everything I do. And one thing that's not in the bio that you read, I'm operating 2 companies as CEO, ETW, as well as a company called Dinner Table. Yeah.
Talk about incremental steps to become, quote unquote, successful, and how you've been able to do that, because you, in my opinion, and also the times that we've spoke, you're very systematic in your approach with everything. So can you share with me a little bit about how you've been able to engineer that incremental step to be able to grow?
Yeah, and I don't think about incremental steps so much as I think about intentionally creating value. And there's something, the way I think about it, it's like this value creation cycle. Struggle to get a capability, and my definition of struggle is any effort to improve a life condition, develop a character trait, develop a capability. Struggle, get the capability, it builds internal fulfillment, self-esteem, all that kind of stuff. Don't stop there, use it to create value and keep taking steps. So when I think about the aerospace company, I took over a really small electroplating company in 1993. And we just did brush plating. I've got tons of pictures, and we'd get a part, put a little bit of nickel on it, or cadmium, or silver, lead, tin, whatever, and sell that. And so we did that, and then when I took over the company, bought it for its debt, and the story's actually in the book, went from 25 employees down to 3, and that company actually sold in 2002, I think, but took that one process and said, well, how could we leverage this? And I said, well, let's get into aerospace. If we repair an aircraft part, that's worth a lot of money. So the next step was go get an FAA repair station. So went and figured that out. How hard could it be, right? Did it. Now, how can we apply our electroplating process to repair a component? Well, we didn't think at the time that we could approach a, Delta Airlines, American, or anybody. It wouldn't be meaningful enough, but we thought helicopter operators, if we save $1,000, that's a big deal for a small helicopter operator. Develop 7 repairs and hit the road. And that's great. Now let's buy a machine, a grinder, then let's buy this and buy that. And next thing you know, fast forward 23 years, 6, 7 companies later and all the stuff that's going on. And we had over 300,000 square feet at the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, one location and in and around it, where you could give us a data plate with a serial number off of a helicopter and we could build the entire helicopter around it. So this, I never thought about like this step, this step, this step. I just thought about, we have this, what's something we could leverage, with this to take the next step that made sense.
Yeah.
And so that's where it went.
Well, I think, that's so wise advice, though, is just I know you're not looking at incremental, you're looking at the value creation, but with intentionality, and I think that's extremely important. As far as businesses that you have maybe consulted or people that have come to you, what are some of the problems that you've heard and seen, but also ways that you're able to solve those problems based on your systematic approach?
Yeah. Has anybody in the room been in a meeting where people were taking actions or talking about things that just didn't make sense in terms of what the company needed? Has that ever happened to anybody other than me? Bill, it's happened once? At least once. The reason it happens, in my opinion, there's 4 areas that our leaders don't understand fully. Business model strategy, the actual value of our stuff through the eyes of our customers, and culture. So business model, the simplest version of it, how do we price and why? Do you have a pricing policy? What are all the approaches to delivering our products and services and associated expenses? And what's the profit left over today? And then the really exciting part, potential for future profit, like we're doing this thing, right? The better they understand the business model, the better they're going to be able to make decisions that are in support of it. But ask most leaders, and I ask a lot of leaders at the top of organizations, what's your business model? They don't have great answers to it. And their leaders even worse answers. And then when it comes to strategy, the simplest way I can think about a strategy to me is nothing more than approaches to increasing the value of the business. That's it. It's nothing more than, and everybody can get their head around that. Not some heady strategy exercise and go through it and don't want to look stupid in the room. It's just approaches to increasing the value of the business. So what is that, and how do every leader and their teams fit into it, whether you have 2 leaders, 10 leaders, thousands of leaders, whatever. And then the value of your stuff, most companies like their stuff a lot more than their customers actually do. I mean, they're buying it, so they like it enough. But when we really know what they're thinking about it, then everybody can get in the game of continually improving, iterating and improving that experience for our customers. And then the last part, when it comes to culture, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs that cause the most value to be created. And I think our goal here is to connect culture to value creation, to actually creating value. So I call those 4 categories value creation nudging. So when things are happening that don't make sense, now I'm nudging to continually educate the leaders in all the meetings to where they get it. And then you're doing it right when, my gosh, they're nudging the next layer down and then the next layer from there. And so you think about my journey, here's the company I'm working 80 plus hours a week, years on end. Starting out, I loved it, never felt like work, right? Fast forward, now we're a $100 million business. It's taking me less than 15 hours a week to run the business. Everybody's running it like they're the CEO of their own role inside the business because of this value creation nudging. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as culture, do you feel that it is either underrated or not rated as high as it should be within companies?
So culture is interesting, and you know, everybody talks about it. Every company has a culture. So think about this: every individual brings cultural energy with them, right? Their beliefs, limiting, otherwise like attitudes, all of that, behaviors, they bring it with them. And most companies don't do a very good job of driving an intentional culture. But if you back all the way up, I think it's, you know, what we agree to do and how things get done, this, you know, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs that cause the most value to be created. There's nothing more important than that, but very few actually do it right. So if you believe philosophically that everything a company does should be done to make it, at least with the intent, measurably better, culture should pass that test. And so what are you doing to design an intentional culture? And I always figure, gosh, if we're going to do that, we need to include all team members in the organization at the time that we're intentionally designing it. And there should be a purpose for any one of the cultural elements. I call them alignment tools: mission, vision, behaviors, quality, policy, leadership traits, whatever you have, whatever's right for the business. What's the, like, if we have it, can you articulate how it's actually going to make the company measurably better? Can you? And most don't go through that. You know, the companies will have a culture committee that gets together and they come up with 4 words that sound amazing, and now you have wallpaper throughout the company, and did it really do anything? And so what I like a mission to say, hey, this is why customers do business with us. It's what we do every day to win. If we don't do it, our jobs are in jeopardy. I like a set of behaviors that create the conditions where at any point in time, 50% or more of our team members are performing, leading, and behaving as good or better than the top 10% at our strongest, most admired competitors. Like, those things are pretty meaty, right? Right? So if we can distill that out with the input of everybody, so it's not, you know, Nathan gave it to the team and you will like it. We developed it, you get a lot more ownership in it. So I think culture is the most important thing, and I'm sure it's in the 90% plus range of companies that don't fully leverage it the way they could.
Yeah, because I feel like many businesses, they're very growth focused. It's on to the next. It's almost, I mean, not every business, obviously, because in order to get to where you were, you know, you have to have that discipline. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, that discipline that you did have while you were growing your company, and some of the sacrifices that you had to make personally, but also professionally as well. So.
Yeah, big question. It's one giant journey. You know, one of the things that I've learned through this whole thing, and it's an internal, you know, sort of mantra for me, is struggle better. And the harder it is, I've gone through it so many times now, I just know it's going to be amazing. So it can be ridiculously hard, and I'll start to get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside that this is going to be so valuable when I come out the other side. Whereas, that's good. A lot of leaders that I meet with, they act like the world's ending, and they're just a puddle of victimhood sitting there on the ground. Like, what are you doing? If everything was perfect, why would we need a leader? It's our job to continually create more value and engage in the appropriate struggle to be able to do that, you know, all the way along. So that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. And the more you go through that cycle, that value creation cycle with struggle in there, the better you get at it, and you feel better about it. We're taking it away from kids, and that's what I'm doing with Dinner Table, is putting the healthy struggle back into the journey so they can be amazing value creating adults. And we're taking it away from employees. Like, they can do so much more than we say they can or can't do because of whatever the conditions are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's probably a few people out there, and then also in this room, though, that are curious about, you know, when do you want to sell your company? And I'd be curious as to, I know that's a little bit different than what we've been on now, but I'd be curious as to what's the mindset there, and how do you get there?
Well, I think when you want to sell a company, it's an individual journey for everybody. They get to decide, you know, what they want to do. But I'm a big believer in making your company worth the most at every single point in time, because life conditions change, all kinds of things can happen. And you brought up discipline before. So as I was building the companies, I never took a dime of outside investment money. Debt financed everything. Starting out with Able Engineering, the first actual aerospace company in '95, We had a credit line of $75,000. It was maxed out. And fast forward to when I sold it, we had a credit facility of $36 million, using about half of it at any point in time. You know, borrowing at 4% and making north of 50% profit. It was a pretty good deal. But the discipline to keep, we would distribute 50% of the money every year. I controlled all the stock. Some of the employees had minority interest because they were thinking and acting like owners and getting those kind of results long enough. But if they left for any reason whatsoever, they'd have to sell the stock back. But every year, rather than waiting for the owner to decide, oh, we're going to distribute this or that based on cash, no, 50% goes out. It covers your taxes, a little bit extra. The rest stays in the company for growth. Never change that all the way through, and that discipline really helped. And there were 13 that had equity. The smallest one got a check for a little bit over $1 million. Largest check was just over $30 million. That wasn't bad for them. It was great.
Discipline pays off. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, there was no emotional anxiety around it. You know, what's going to happen? Everybody these are the rules of engagement. Everybody knew exactly what to expect, and if they wanted more and got frustrated, my conversation was always the same. You didn't create the value. How am I supposed to pay it to you if you didn't create the value? What a great culture, too. I mean, it's like there's this solid, everybody going for it. And those that couldn't keep up in that culture, well, then we found a different place for them. And you talk about culture. Some of you have heard me say this before. When team members, they could be getting great, performance, great results, but terrible cultural fits. I wasn't joking when I told other team members, as soon as we identified, if you can get them a job at our strongest, most admired competitor, I will give you a bonus, because they can literally go suck the life force out of those folks instead of doing it with us. And if they get them a senior leadership position, we'll get them a parking space and maybe a company car.
Yeah. Value creation, we want to create a lot of value for you guys out here in the audience, and we didn't want to just go and banter back and forth. I'm sure we could go so deep into all of the things, right? Experiences of a CEO that has had a significant exit and then now currently is running multiple companies. But would you like to open up the floor for some Q&A?
I would love that. I'd love that, yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, raise your hand, yeah, and then speak up.
Cool. So you mentioned your business had a compelling story that helped people feel that energy and build on that culture and inspired them. What was that story?
I'm not sure the story you're referring to, but when I think about business and the approach, material value is how we sort of look at, hey, the company's growing, it's good for all stakeholders, more opportunities for employees, shareholder return, all of it. The emotional energy piece of it, net positive emotional energy, is the X factor for leaders, and I spent a lot of time on leadership development with my team. When I sold it, I had 64 leaders that the time I did spend, I mostly spent developing them. And then the connectedness piece, which I call spiritual value creation, lots of programs that connect employees. So why is this important? I've had a number of folks over the years say, we would never put in a 10,000 square foot gym, we would never have all these programs that you have. And even the company that bought us eventually got rid of the gym that I had. But why is this stuff important? It's all about productive engagement. So I don't know what you believe around what percentage productive engagement do we get on average from team members. It's pretty low. I want to say in the 20% range likely. I think I was getting more like 50%. Maybe, and way higher with some, maybe a little lower, but on average 50% or more than double what I consider the national average for productive engagement. So doing that, having that culture, having that environment, that's why it matters. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Second question, how do you define productive engagement?
Engagement with what you want them to be engaged with, which is creating the value that their role is designed to create. So what are the outcomes that you're held accountable to? They should be measurable, probably shouldn't be more than 2, 4 max. You're doing lots of other stuff, and are you on track, ahead, or behind? And we want you engaged with that, and if at the top it's EBITDA and we start here and we want to go here, all the other goals align to that. They're all subordinate to it, including everything, culture and leadership development. Everything. Like, get all that stuff right, you get more productive engagement where people are hitting their goals a higher percentage of the time. And it's incredible, what can happen to the value of a business.
Did you guys capture that? On track? On track?
Well, yeah, I would just look at it and say when somebody comes on board and I say, let's take something really simple like a sales position. You're going to sell X. This year you're going to, let's just say $1 million. You're going to start at zero. It's going to be linear. It's just how it works here. Do you think you can do that? It's almost always, well, I've never seen it not. Yes, of course I can do that. And I've even heard many times, if I can't do that, something's wrong with me. Great. So here's what we're going to track you to. And if you fall below this line, let's say at any point in time it's on pace to be below $800,000, this won't work and we'll have to make a change. Do you understand? Yes. That's the first conversation I'll have. So as soon as it drops below that bottom line, I bring them in, okay, thank you so much for trying, I appreciate it, but we need this because the company's dependent on this happening. It's a lifeblood of the organization. So it's a great upfront conversation. I think every team member should know what's expected and where they stand regarding performance 100% of the time, and we're tracking it. And then 9 times out of 10 or more, when you have to let them go, there's no surprises whatsoever. We already had this conversation. Yeah.
Can you just repeat that?
Yes.
Question? Yeah.
All right. More questions. This is more of an interactive session right now.
I would love to be able to provide a 10,000 square foot gym for culture and to be able to create that. But for the businesses that are like maybe 10 employees to 50, maybe up to 100 that might not have the facility or the resources, where does the culture start with some of the smaller businesses, let's say 10 employees and growing from kind of the smaller end? Or where did you start when you were at that point?
Yeah,
the question is, where do you start as a small business for creating culture? There you go.
Yeah, be intentional about connecting culture to value creation. And so I didn't start out with 3 employees or 10 or even 100 employees with a gym. But as we got bigger, we could afford a 10,000 square foot gym. But there's lots you can do in terms of team wellness programs. It could be, jumping jacks in the parking lot before. What we're doing is we're strengthening community within the organization. And on the culture side, you're being really intentional around what do we all agree to do, how things get done. You're being intentional about developing your leaders and how they show up, leadership traits, positive energy in good times and especially bad times. Create an energizing environment from which all the team members create value. Like, these are perspectives a lot of leaders don't have. In my company, ETW, we recently launched the Leadership Value Lab that goes through all this. Every leaders they can all be assessed going through it. You get all the content in there. There's a monthly interactive session walking them through all these things. So it can start with 2 employees, 5 employees. And what is the team when you're driving culture? And I heard a great definition recently that your team is everybody required to accomplish the value that you're trying to create it going through. So just be intentional about it. And you'll be way ahead of the game, whether it's 5 employees, 10 employees, 20, it really doesn't matter. And as you create more and more value, you'll come up with more creative ways to drive material, emotional, and connectedness / spiritual energy. Yeah.
Right over there.
And, I really liked what you were saying about the stock that you offered to some of your top performers. Did you have a specific formula for that? Or was it kind of a case-by-case scenario of how you offered that, how they could earn that, what the
That's good.
intent was with it?
So the question is how within an organization do you structure employee stock ownership?
Yeah, for me, it's always been on a case-by-case basis, but I had some basic rules. I'm never going to go below in any of my companies controlling interest. And even though you could have controlling interest in voting shares and all that, but I would never go below 51% of it. And I never got close to that, so always had more. And if they how I structured it, if they left for any reason whatsoever and no reason at all, they'd have to sell that back to me at 3x internal equity, latest available financial statements. Super simple. Their spouses sign it. A couple of folks that I had to ask to leave because they weren't holding up their end of the bargain, paid them their 3x, and they got attorneys and they tried to get more and do evaluations. Like, nope, this is the deal, and it was bulletproof. It stood up all the way through. But a danger there is early on. That's why I had to let a few go. I gave them equity hoping hoping that if they thought like an owner, because now they've got some equity, it would change how they perform. My biggest lesson was those that perform that way would do it regardless. I just rewarded them for doing it. But when I gave it before earn, thinking that would change behavior, huge mistake.
Yeah, that typically doesn't happen. I've seen that before.
It can, yeah.
Thank you.
One more, if you don't mind. You mentioned a little bit earlier about dinner table, and I was just curious to hear a little bit more about that, because it seems like a lot of the value you've created in the companies, you're able to bring that into a lot of households and create a lot of impact there.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a local-based company that started called Gravy Stack, and it was a kids banking app, and the model never made sense to me, but they burned through close to $15 million. And the board called me in May of last year and said, what do we do? This isn't working. And I said, well, I hated that I was wrong, but I told you this over a year ago. You need to make a change. So they raised a little bit more money. I reconfigured the entire team, and that was, I think I took over as May 29th last year. So in 1 year flat, we have about 40,000 parents in our dinner table family community, and last I looked, they come from 67 different countries. And my whole purpose in the world right now is to drive holistic value creation behaviors into the world through for-profit business, nonprofit, and now families. And what we're doing is taking families on a value creation journey. So how do you intentionally create holistic value as a family? Material, emotional energy, what does it feel like to be in the family? Connectedness, spiritual value creation, which can mean something different to every family. They come up with their own balance. And then think about legacy. So rather than, I call inheritance divide and hope for the best. When I think about legacy, it's like, how do we build intentional holistic value in the family and then pass it on generationally in a way that they can build on it, going forward. So we're helping families on these value creation, journeys, and it's only been a year. So we have a pretty big virtual community. I've got 2 in-person communities I run in lower income communities in Phoenix. And my goal here, and I'm reorganizing the entire team and all the systems right now to take it to millions of families, and I'm super excited about it. And this is my mission, and selfishly, and I think I mentioned it earlier, the kids today are going to be running the world that we age out in. I want it to be amazing, and selfishly, I want it to be a better world out there. And the mission alignment is so strong, and had they not done it, I was going to do it in a nonprofit anyway. Don't need their money, didn't need any of it, and I'm not charging them $1 to do this, not $1. And I've got a number of team members running at it too. So it's about creating holistic value in the world. Our government isn't educating the kids very well when it comes to discovering their value creation superpower. So how do we build a community of parents, families raising kids to create value in the world? Whole different thing. It's a journey.
That's good.
Yeah.
One last question. Anybody else? In the back there,
Yeah,
Alex.
Pleasure hearing you. One of the things I think I heard was you talking about the culture building within the company, and if I understood correctly, it almost sounded like it was an inclusive culture building exercise or experience at the onset, and I was hoping maybe you could elaborate that. Was that something like you came into a business and on a regular basis, are you getting the employees and the staff or the leadership team together to talk about what is the definition of our culture? How are we defining what the value creation looks like? Is it something you're checking in? Like, how does it start? And then how do you evolve it and check in on it on an ongoing basis?
The question real quick was, how do you continue to check in on the cultural alignment and to incentivize cultural performance within a company?
Cultural alignment tools have to be operationalized. It can't just be wallpaper. And I remember with one of my companies got to about 70 employees, this is back in the 90s, and we had a set of alignment tools. I was part of a CEO mastermind group back then. I had a speaker come in, and so I picked these amazing sounding values. Integrity, and so we had our list. Top was integrity. I remember asking 10 employees, how are you applying integrity to make us measurably better? And I got 10 crazy answers that said, wow, we've really wasted our time. And that's where I backed up and said, hey, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have a purpose for every alignment tool or category of alignment tools, like a set of behaviors. Values, I moved away from those because they can be just too subjective in how they're being applied. And so we have to operationalize all of it, and they become amazing, cultural alignment tools become amazing leadership and team member development tools. Like, let's say, for example, high-performing team members at our company do what they say they will. They have a personal commitment to the end result. They're respectful, honest, and straightforward. They treat company resources as their own. It's like whatever you pick. And when somebody does it, you get to celebrate that. When they don't do it, it's a development opportunity conversation. So you have to operationalize it appropriately for your business. Does that answer?
Yeah, and is the staff is included in that process of defining that, if that's what I understood?
Yeah, it works best. So when it comes to defining cultural alignment tools, I think mission and vision should be developed by the leadership team, not one individual, but the leadership team. But when you get into things that go across the board, like leadership traits and behaviors you want everybody to live, everybody should be involved in it. And even when we had 70 employees and we developed our final set of alignment tools, we could keep telling that story. So even all the way to 500 employees, this is how we developed, this is why, and that ownership kept transferring as the group got bigger. But because we operationalized the application of it, for example, every 6 months, every team member, I did this, I'm not recommending anybody else does, every 6 months, every team member for every alignment tool has to have one example of how they applied it to make the organization measurably better. And if they were up for it, take a shot at calculating the ROI. Did it improve customer experience, internal or external, and how was it measured? Did it improve cash flow? Did it improve profitability? When they took their shots at how they applied it and they got it wildly wrong, that was fantastic, because now you know what they're thinking and you can actually educate them around it. So you have to operationalize it.
One more, right here.
Can I build something?
Go ahead.
So can you speak to the psychological perspective of, you seem to have a really healthy perspective of creating value for the world and then releasing it, where so many entrepreneurs and business owners almost turn what they're creating into their own identity, and then they have a hard time releasing it.
Yeah, that's a big question. So it's perspective on creating value in the world.
And then releasing it and empowering others to carry it beyond you.
And empowering others to carry it beyond. So I've had this philosophy for a long time, and it's made me a lot more money, I think, than I otherwise would have made, if that's important to you. And every interaction has to be win-win. And so I go out of my way to make sure that's happening, and then I get exposed to more opportunities than most do because of that. So this strategy that I could take one thing and say, well, I could have, even selling my aerospace companies, I probably could have made another 30, 40, 50 million bucks into my pocket as opposed to giving it out to others. But I didn't. They helped me get there. And all of this win-win way of doing it exposes to so much more. And so when I push holistic value creation behaviors out into the world through all the channels that I do it, it's my purpose, my mission in life. It increases fulfillment. My internal most important number is fulfillment, and it exposes me to more and more opportunities. And I'm just hoping I can get to millions of families someday, and it moves the needle and makes it a better world for all of us. And one of the things I commented earlier, I forget where that conversation was going, that if a company makes $1 billion and everybody celebrates them, look at all the profit they made, but the effect of their product or service took $2 billion or more out of the world, even if they came to me and said, hey, give us $1 million to invest and we guarantee in 30 days you get 10 million bucks, no way in hell would I do it. Like, I'm serious about it. And I think when one of my internal values is virtue. And for me, practicing virtue means creating objectively measurable value in the world and pushing back on things, taking value out of the world, at least in proportion. So that's what I'm doing. But too many people will say the right thing because it sounds good, it's virtue signaling. And when it comes to money, they have situational morality and go the other direction. It's crazy. what's going on. So more people, I think, I think it'd be helpful to do that. And a big part of what I'm putting out into the world is getting more to think that way. Holistic value creation, win-win in every situation that we have. Oh, and by the way, it exposes you to more opportunities than the more win-lose folks have been in their negotiating. And if money's important, you can create a lot of material value doing that. And by the way, you just feel better when you're in balance. Yeah, right.
Last one.
Is that okay? Sorry. I've heard a lot of stories of entrepreneurs, business owners exiting a company that they've been at for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and their identity is like, what now? And did you just have other things going on, or did you struggle with that as like, I've given this 25 years, and who am I, where am I going, or did you have those other things still working in the background?
So the question of some entrepreneurs, they have a company, they make it their identity, they sell it, and what happens to their identity? The thing I love about the value creation lens, I'm here to create value. So when people ask me, after you sold your aerospace company, do you miss your baby? And it's like, well, my baby was the culture, and now I'm impacting 100-fold the number of employees or more. And this is so cool. It was just an extension. So I'm creating value this way. And for me, it's got to be in balance, material, emotional, spiritual. And if something happens where I can't do this anymore, this is what, and there's so many other avenues to do it, I would never make that my identity. That said, I have a rock and roll band. I played in a music festival last weekend in Rocky Point, Circus Mexicus. I play guitar since I was 5 years old. I play 3 hours a day. That's a great hobby. Loved exercise. Taught martial arts for a lot of years. Had a full-time school. Lots of kids from white belt to 4th degree black belt, going through my system. And used to race motorcycles. I mean, I guess I've lived long enough to do a lot. There's a lot of things that I do, but all the way through it, even when I couldn't articulate it, it was about creating value in the world and things being win-win. And I think it's because of how I was raised in Lacey and I were talking about this, in a low-income family members in and out of prison, some for some really bad things, showed me way more about how not to show up in the world. Kicked out of the house at the beginning of my senior year. Best thing that ever happened to me. And so that, this, make creating value in the world your identity, not this one thing and the attention you're getting from it. Make it, in fact, I would say the more value you focus on creating, it puts up a shield to external noise. We're not extrinsically motivated anymore. It's all internal. And if we're good, then that won't matter. Does that help?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Man, thank you so much for sharing your value to us. Did you guys take some nuggets out of this? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll move on here to the next part of today, but
Okay.
thank you so much, Lee. Give him a round of applause.